Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this.
But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United, the National League, are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast, the Sutton Podcast. I'm delighted to say that joining me once again as a guest today is back from his trip to Crewe, where he planned ahead, unlike lots of people, stayed overnight and had a relatively easy journey home today. It's Mark Bravery. Hi Mark, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks.
Good. So you predicted all the travel chaos and you decided that you're going to have a nice relaxing trip down today, the next day. Or did you have other plans?
Yeah, well, one of the benefits of being retired, of course, is you've got more time to play with. So, if you've got a Tuesday night game some distance away from London, you nearly always stay over.
Yeah.
And it's much more relaxing doing it that way.
Absolutely. So, yesterday's game, obviously disappointing. I was actually very concerned when I watched Matt's interview earlier. He just sounded very, very flat and very down. Which he doesn't normally. He's normally quite upbeat with something. But clearly there's frustrations there. I mean, when the lineup was announced, what were your thoughts going into the game? I was actually quite relatively confident after speaking to some Crewe fans. I was like, oh, we should still do this.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite similar to the lineup from Saturday, but of course Omar was out injured, so Kwame Thomas came into the starting lineup, and we're still missing Will Randall as well as obviously Ben Goodliffe, who's out long term, and Kobe. So a few important players missing there, but all clubs have got to cope with injuries. The injury list isn't as massive as one or two of the lists we had last season. So, we thought we ought to be able to cope. I just think we were missing a bit of a spark up front. We seemed to lack a bit of creativity. We defended quite well for the most part. Midfield was okay. But I think a little bit light up front. I think we badly missed Omar last night because he's a bit of an unpredictable player. It's sometimes hard to see what he's going to do, and that obviously gives opposition defences problems. Whereas without wishing to be critical at all, I think Kwame and Donovan are both a bit more predictable in the way they play, and therefore probably a bit easier for defences to handle. I think Donovan, we know to see him at his best, we need to get the ball to him at his feet in space, and he just wasn't getting that much last night. There was one occasion, end of the first half, where he did kind of wriggle through and got a shot away, which the keeper dealt with not terribly effectively. Harry picked up the loose ball and hit the top of the bar. But apart from that, Donovan didn't have much of a sniff of goal. And Kwame, we've got to bear in mind, he hasn't had much experience at this level. He was kind of brought in to replace Omar, brought in as a sort of target man, and didn't have a lot of joy winning the high balls against their defence, and was taken off after just over an hour. Yeah,
I think the change probably was planned because Matt likes to do it around the 60-70 minute mark anyway. But there were just not necessarily going forward, because I'm not sure if this is the first time they've played together. Well, definitely in the league match it'll be the first time they've played together. But it was just the closing down that Omar does. It's noticeable when he's not there how much that pressing and defending is from the front, and when he's not there, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, he does an awful lot more work than we realise. We all obviously appreciate the work he does, but it's just a little bit that he was missing. It's not to be critical. It's the first time those two have sort of been a partnership together. But I think you're right. I think how Donovan was playing in that run into the title is slightly different to how we're asking him to play now. And I think we're not getting the best of him at the moment. But lots of people are saying, oh, we need a poacher, we need a striker who can score loads of goals. Donovan can score loads of goals, but we just maybe need to have a little tweak on how we're serving him. But their goal was actually a good goal. For all the huffing and puffing in the game. The game itself, I don't think will ever go down as a classic. But their goal was actually a good goal, and it's one of those that you just have to go, yeah, okay. I mean, there are talk where some people saying, well, this person could have cut it and that person could have stopped it, but every goal can be stopped at some point. But we had loads and loads of chances. In this whole idea of a great striker who's sitting around waiting for Sutton United's call so they can come in and score 30 goals in a season for us, it's not going to happen. And even if it does, most of the chances didn't fall to our strikers. I think Harry had 2, maybe 3 reasonable chances.
Certainly 2. There was one quite early where he had the ball in space and kind of sliced wide. And then there was the one towards the end of the first half that I've just mentioned where he hit the bar.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, most of our chances fell either to Harry or to one of the defenders. I mean, Joe Kizzy had a good shot on goal quite late on in the game, and that drew a good save from their keeper. Louis John headed just over. I think it was from a corner in the first half.
Yeah.
Bob Milson's delivery is obviously very important for us. He had a bit of a mixed bag last night. 1 or 2 of his free kicks didn't quite come off, but a couple of others caused their defence quite a lot of problems. And one, I think, almost led to a goal.
Yeah, I think their keeper actually made a really good save. Was it one of Rob's free kicks? But nonetheless, we didn't do enough to get the draw. Although when the 2 young uns, we're allowed to say that, came on and ran around up front, they did cause all sorts of problems because obviously they're playing a little bit without sort of any fear and just running around. I thought Killian's penalty shout was quite soft. I thought Donovan had a fairly good shout earlier in the match, and I think he was sandwiched between 2 players. I spoke to Paul, and he said, I think the pictures show that he's been pulled back by both of them, let alone one of them. But yeah, it's just one of those frustrating games. Even to the point of Luke came on quite late on, and he had quite a good chance for a free kick. Obviously, he's good at a dead ball. I'm not sure if he was playing for this, hitting it off the knee to try and do a little 1-2 off the wall. It seemed ambitious. What was the thoughts in the stadium then?
I do remember that opportunity. I mean, I think Matt made that triple substitution on 80 minutes, and that did change the game. I mean, suddenly we had all these new players on the pitch, plenty of energy, and you could sense that Crewe was starting to buckle. They're only 1-0 up, of course. They were starting to run the clock down. Their keeper was time wasting. He was booked. They were taking the ball to the corner flag. And when we did have the ball and attacked them, they did just about manage to defend, but they were looking a bit nervous. And I kind of thought if the game had gone on for another 10 minutes, I think we would have scored. But we just left that late burst of energy, a bit too late, perhaps.
A bit too late,
which ran out of time in the end.
Yeah, and I mean their keeper was at least in one place man of the match. He made team of the week as well, I think, or team of the day. Which again, I don't want to read too much into that now because our keeper Jack was in the team of the week when we played against Barrow, and I was like, I don't actually remember him doing an awful lot, but we think it might be the assist that he got for the goal.
Okay, he did make one very good save in that game. Didn't he? It's a fierce long range shot. He tipped, I think, onto the post, and it was clear. But he didn't make a string of great saves in that game. Didn't need to.
No, absolutely. But he seemed to have settled a bit more now. There was
Yeah,
some
yeah.
criticism of various. Basically, he wasn't Dino in the first couple of games, but he seems to definitely have settled down a little bit, which we always knew would take a few games.
Yeah, I've no concerns about Jack Rose. He's very solid. He's not the character that Dino is. He doesn't go charging out of his area. He's not going to dribble the ball into the opposition half as Dino did at Stevenage. But he's perhaps less of a maverick, and that perhaps a bit less prone to positional errors than Dean. So he has strengths that Dean didn't, and he's a different sort of keeper. But I've no great concerns about him at all. And I trust Matt's judgment in that area of recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely. And my current favourite, Josh. He played again the full game. How was he seemed to have a lot of the ball yesterday.
Yeah, I mean he's obviously a player who's still adapting to this level of football, but he's shown quite a lot of promise, and I think he will improve through the season. There were a couple of occasions last night where he beat the last defender, got the ball to the edge of the area, but then there weren't too many options on, and the ball was played too close to their keeper, who made two routine saves, easy saves. But I think if he keeps at it, eventually the chance will come, and he'll get a goal or at least an assist.
Yeah,
I think plenty of promise there.
I think something in his favour is he can play on either wing or through the middle as well.
Yeah.
So he's definitely someone. Maybe it's a bit early in the season for him, but imagine him coming on and running on tired legs. Would terrify anyone. But it's always difficult after a defeat because we're always down and a bit. But who would you? I've got a few names to chuck in, but who do you feel are your player of the day? A couple of nominations.
Right. Yeah, I had a quick chat with Andy Kay about this, and we both agree that the standout player last night, and indeed of the season so far, has been Rob Milsom.
Yeah.
He just looks a cut above everybody else at the moment. Very reliable, very solid on the ball, but gets forward well, can provide assists, and of course we've already mentioned his free kicks. Didn't get them all right last night, but a couple of them caused real problems for the home defence. And he also got back to make one great blocking tackle as well, which could have led to a goal had he not done that. So his all-round play was very good, and he would certainly be my pick for man of the match for last night, and indeed of the season so far. If we're talking about other names, I mean, we've mentioned Josh. You could throw his name in. I thought Joe Kizzy and Louis John had pretty good games at centre back. Joe bought that save from their keeper right towards the end, about 75 minutes, I think. It was a good goal attempt. We know Joe can get forward and score from set pieces and such like. So those are two other names you might want to throw in.
Perfect. So what we'll do is, because three of those names were the same three names that I'd put down anyway.
Okay, so that's good to hear.
So Joe, Josh, and Rob. I think Rob is doing. Obviously, he was with us last year and he was great anyway. But he's doing what Eastie seemed to do last year, and just suddenly be like, okay, now I'm doing a little bit of a step up. Maybe that's the signing of Mr. Hart coming in and feeling like his shirt's under a bit of pressure, so he feels he has to. We will have joining us in a little while, gentleman Alex from Grimsby podcast. But what are your own thoughts ahead of the Grimsby match at the weekend? It's another away match, another team that we certainly haven't played very often.
I mean, I have to confess I don't know a great deal about Grimsby. I've seen them play once before, but that was several seasons ago. I know they had a player with them last season. I think his name was McAtee. I can't recall his first name, but I know he got a lot of goals for them. But I think he's now left. I think he might have only been on loan, and I think he's gone to Luton. So he's one player we won't, I think, need to face this weekend. But I think he scored a lot of important goals for Grimsby last season. And of course, they had that fantastic run of playoff wins to get back up into League Two, where I think they won 3 successive games away, didn't they, including at Wrexham? So was it 5-4 or something they won there? So they're on a bit of a roll at the moment.
Yeah, well, we'll find out some of those details in a sec, because Alex from the DN35 Oddcast or podcast, I'm not 100% sure which way around it is just going to join us now. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Sutton United Talk Time on podcast, the Sutton Podcast. If you are new to the show, hello, and you are very welcome. Hope you enjoy what we do. It's a very simple format. We get a few people on to talk about the game that's just gone, and then we preview the next game coming up. We are available on most podcast platforms where you can listen, rate and review. If you find that we're not on your preferred platform, please let me know and I'll sort that for you. If anyone would like to support the podcast, you can find out how with more information on the website, which is www.suttonpodcast.com, and there's a tab where you can find out how to be a guest as well. Please find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok with the username @SuttonPodcast. Every like, follow and share is really appreciated. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you. Hello, Alex.
Evening, gents. Can you hear me?
I can indeed hear you. Yeah. So
I have no idea which one of this is coming out of. So
whatever one it is, it's working. So, Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself and your podcast. And what is it? Is it Oddcast or podcast?
Is it a what? Oh, no, I'm gone.
Podcast.
There is no place for jokes like that. Place spelt Plaice. Yeah, I don't know. Are there jokes for Sutton? Is it just phone shop references? Is it?
Yeah.
Is that about it?
No, it was just on your Twitter. It's got the DN35 and then in brackets P and then Oddcast.
Promoted. P for promoted.
I didn't get that. I've got it now.
We've just got to change it to C some point for champions, but maybe not this year.
Yeah,
that was it. We should probably change that now. But yeah, I think we all kind of enjoyed it for a while. I think the club's still got it up as well.
Yeah. So, how long have you been doing the podcast?
Oh, we've been doing it for sort of 6-7 years. We've been doing it for quite a while now. It was just me and my friend Henry. We both live down south, so. It was a way of being able to chat with one another. We basically sat across from one another, never knew each other before town games, and we endured what we thought was the worst ever season, sort of 24 games without a win at one point. So thanks to old drunk Mike Newell for helping us out in that one. Spent more time in the bar than he did on the training pitch. Yeah, it meant that we went down, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. It was at one point, when it just goes into pure chaos. And everybody's rebelling, and all the fans are just, it's gone past gallows humour, and everyone's just taking the mick out of absolutely everything. It was probably one of my more enjoyable seasons following town. Just you knew what was going to happen, but yeah, it was. We came off the back of that, and it's sort of we actually now are slightly professional and have a schedule instead of saying we'll be back next week, and then 6 months later we'll rock up again.
So, you guys did the very rare. Dropped down to the National League and back again.
Yeah, we don't know how we did that. It was the right laugh. And it's interesting because obviously we went into it fully aware of what we were this time around anyway, fully aware of what we were getting into, and sort of waiting for it. And it was nice to see Oldham got national lead. Vanarama yesterday losing to Wealdstone.
Yeah.
And we fully embraced it. The second we went back down, we knew what we were getting into. And sort of, I still hate Andy Woodman with a passion. I can't wait till he has a coronary because he's got a BMI higher than the points total he got last year. I was happy to throw myself well into it straight away and go, yeah, we lose to Wealdstone. It'd be funny. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, so it was useful, and so we just expected to be down there for a few seasons. It was like, even from when you guys were there now, the money is ridiculous, isn't it? Like Stockport and Wrexham were going for it. Chesterfield have decided that having no money isn't a problem; they'll just spend it anyway. Yeah. And putting $250,000 down for Tishmanga. So yeah, it was. I don't know how we snuck in, and then we just. It was weird because we hadn't done that sort of playoff campaign of sort of 3 games, and then they were all away from home if you count West Ham, and yeah, it was just chaos. It was pure. It felt like a mini World Cup, like a really bad mini World Cup for everyone else, and we just found out no one had had chance to work out that one of our players could throw the ball really far, and hadn't worked out how to sort of judge it. So we kind of had the right time frame for him to go, actually, if we defend this, we'll be all right. But they didn't. So we're back here, and I can actually watch the games again instead of having to listen to local radio.
So this season so far, what were your expectations? And I know it's only a few games in, it's one less for you, but what were you hoping for, and how's it going so far? Well, we've just lost. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'd not this, and I think it muted it automatically. It's weird because I think the town fans are pretty sort of savvy in where we should be. We do have aspirations to play higher, and we do have that sort of, but we try and hide that idea of like, oh, we used to be a championship club, don't you know? Because that's a long time ago now. But we do have aspirations to be that high. We've sold the most season tickets we've sold in living memory, so we sold around 6,000 season tickets this season, and so people are expecting stuff, and we expect to keep going. I always think League Two is actually slightly easier than the National League to get out of. I don't know if it's true anymore. You guys would probably be able to say so, because it was always a good adage that if you got out of the National League, you'd stood yourself in good chance to do well in League Two. But I'm not sure, you guys aside, I don't know if that's the same sort of adage now. Look at Harrogate, look at Barrow. Those teams of Macclesfield, those teams struggled when they came back up. So
yeah, I think Harrogate might have struggled because they went up and then they had the COVID behind closed doors. They didn't have that everyone with them, and that's a good goodwill. We still don't really know what's going on. I think we'll still be another 5 or 6 years going, we're non-league, but we just happen to be in the league.
yeah, absolutely. I do like to take I'm glad that, it'd be interesting to get you guys' thoughts. I like that there isn't the 3G pitch thing, and I know you and Harrogate had to go through it because it does seem just an added level of professionalism to the league. I can understand the reasons for it, but I don't know.
I loved it. A lot of the criticism on the 3G pitches, and I'm sure Mark will agree with me, is they're terrible for the players and we get loads and loads of injuries. We've had more injuries in the last season and a bit than we had in 5 years on the 3G pitch. For us, one of my proudest things is when we had to take the pitch up, there was a lot of worry from Sutton fans. And it took a little while for everyone to understand the worry wasn't about the first team, because the first team are always going to have a pitch. We've got a big community team. We've got the women's team. We've got the academies, and they all used to play on the pitch. So it was a huge, huge thing and part of our sort of identity, where so many people played on the pitch. Because all the little kids running around, that's Sutton United's pitch. That's our supporters in the next 20 years. Yeah. We loved it. At first, we weren't sure. There was a lot of us that weren't sure. I can't remember which camp you were in, Mark, but I think we mostly turned the corner, didn't we? We were all fans by the end.
Yeah, I think we were persuaded. I think that our manager at the time, Paul Doswell, was clearly an enthusiast and an advocate for 3G pitches, and the fact that you could play on them in any weather. You didn't get games called off because of waterlogged pitches or frost, but very often if at all, and obviously the community aspect, Mike, that you've just described. And I think a lot of the fans just bought into it because the manager and the people around him were so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah,
I think there was also a kind of, everybody's against us, and so many other fans and clubs seem to be against 3G. It was almost a kind of, right, we're going to prove you wrong. They dug in defensively and marshalled all the arguments in favour of 3G.
It was the first thing mentioned every time anyone ever lost on the pitch. It was like, of course, it's the magic pitch.
I think we've only used. Who would have had a 3G pitch last
Bromley.
season? Just Bromley. So we went to Bromley in October last year, and it rained like it did today. So it was cataclysmic, and there was definitely an advantage. Our players were playing like Bambi on ice. It was like Mark Fowler from, Dancing on Ice. One of our left wingers went for it and he kept running and he couldn't stop, sort of thing. And they just knew that they just had to shoot and it'd be all right. yeah, I think that probably didn't help. But it is nice to, you know, if you lose, you can have a jibe going, come on, lads, you got to get off. The Beavers have got this pitch booked at 10.
Yes, so torrential rain.
Yes.
We're in the middle of a drought. There's hosepipe bans going on everywhere. And your game was called off for waterlogged pitch.
Yeah, it was just biblical rain. It was just, you know, the ground is dry as out, so it doesn't help. It also doesn't help. It was high tide yesterday for us, like a real high tide, because the ground is next to the sea. That actually affects the water table under the pitch as well. Yeah, it just couldn't seep in anywhere, and they did stop for sort of 10-15 minutes to try and get the water off, but it was coming down as quick as they could get it off. And it did have a wonder. There was one tackle. Please come to go check our Twitter feed out, because Anthony Glennon made a tackle which was so wonderful. He slid in from about 45 yards out and he sort of ended up in the away stand, water everywhere. It was beautiful, and they nearly scored a ridiculous own goal. It was a lot of fun, but I think my heart goes out for Carlisle fans who sort of made that trip. It's not an easy one, is it?
No.
And but at least they get to come to Cleethorpes twice, the lucky so-and-so. So,
yeah, you know. Yeah, another midweek trip.
Yeah,
I'm sure they can't wait.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm sure it'll be in November, so it'll be fine. They'll love it. But yeah, it was a bit of a funny one, but it needed to be done. Hilarious. Yeah.
So on our trip, which is going to be Saturday, I mean, I haven't checked your weather reports. Are we expecting more rain, or are we? Do you think we're good to go?
Seeing the pictures I've seen out of London today, I'm more worried about you guys getting out, because you know Hendon's flooded. And everything, so you know, I don't know.
Miles away, don't worry about. Yeah, that's miles away.
It's you got to go through it to get there, haven't you? But yeah, it'll be all right, and it'll be a cracking day. You're lucky because it'll be in the summer, so you've got no better place to come. Beach is an actual beach, unlike what you Southerners call a beach, which is basically just a gravel yard. It doesn't look like Jewson's. It's a proper beach with sand, and you get decent fish and chips. None of this cod muck that you lot eat. So you know you'll love it. Absolutely love it.
Good.
It'll be beautiful.
And on while we're doing the food, where's the good place for us to drink? Mark's gonna have some plans himself, but
so to drink, you'll probably end up going into Cleethorpes. So there's enough. It's just it's Skeggy, it's Brighton, it's Bognor. So you'll be absolutely fine. It'll be there's the Tivoli Town Gives in Grimsby. There's a decent local brewery on the way into town called Doc's Beers, which is perfect. In Cleethorpes, there's a place called Message in a Bottle, which does lots of niche breweries and craft beers, which is great. There's a Spoons, and then there's enough bars around. There's like 0 degrees north and stuff, which are brilliant. And you can sort of walk, if it's nice enough, you can walk from the seafront down the seafront up to the ground. So you'll love it, and get a Steele's or Ernie Beckett's for fish and chips, and you'll be absolutely perfect. You'll love it. Lovely. It's a proper old ground, proper roof on it as well.
Oh, good.
You'll make a fair bit of noise.
Good. And Mark, where are you headed? I know you.
I've been to Cleethorpes once before. There's a little micro pub at Cleethorpes Station. It's called something like the number 1 refreshment room.
Yeah, number 1 signal box.
Opens really early. It's either 10 or 11. There's another, I think, owned by the same people. There's another one pub nearby overlooking the station as well. Sort of sister pub of that one, which is a bigger one. There's also a brew pub a bit further away called Willie's, which I've been to. They brew their own beer there. And as Alex says, there are other places as well. So plenty of opportunities in Cleethorpes, and only a short walk from the ground.
Yeah, let's not tell people they can start at 10 o'clock. That's dangerous. that's a whole extra hour for them. Jesus Christ.
I think they have the world's smallest pub as well, somewhere further up as well, the signal box.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've not been there, but I'm aware of that place. Yeah,
you'll love it. It's brilliant. There's a lot of things that you can go on the light rail. It'll be like a football special, but for the borrowers.
Excellent news. And what do we think of results-wise, guys? What do we think? Are we expecting a nice ball draw, or are you confident, Alex, Mark? What are you feeling?
I think it's going to be quite hard. I have to confess, I don't know a great deal about the current Grimsby side. Obviously, I've seen some of their results, but I don't quite know how to forecast this one. But looking at our results so far, we've not scored many and not conceded many. Our defence has been fairly solid, but we struggled a bit up front, and we might be missing one or two forward players still. So I'm not expecting a high-scoring game. Maybe 1-1. I'll say tentatively.
Okay. And Alex?
Yeah, I'm pretty much mirrored for you guys. We've got no strikers. John McAtee was sold to Luton, immediately loaned back to us, which was brilliant. And then they went, that shoulder injury that's bugging him. Can we have a proper look at it? And he's out now till sort of January. Ryan Taylor is brilliant, but he's about 96 and sort of can't play a full game. We've got a guy from Luton now on loan as well, in addition to that, who's quite raw. But we're decent at set pieces. If anything gets on Waterfall's head in the box, you're doomed. But we're playing some neat stuff, and it's sort of the Leyton Orient game was a real test of character to show how it was the first game of the season. Crewe we demolished, which was brilliant. We got lucky against Rochdale. They could have been 3-4-0 up after the first sort of 30 minutes, but then sort of took it with Waterfall header at the end. It will be nice. I imagine it'll be a big crowd. And so I think there'll be quite a bit of expectation that we go out there, and I would imagine there'll be all these sort of no disrespects to the likes of Sutton, as you all love to hear, because we usually have it thrown at us, and then we'll all be walking off wondering how we lost 2-0 and we're played off the park. Yeah, I would imagine it'll be. I'd like to think we'll go out there and give it our all. They seem to be really gelling, and the midfield is really tough to get through. So if you can get behind our defence, so if you've got a fast guy up front or on the wings, you've got an opportunity. The left is a little bit more vulnerable than the right, though. Fete, who used to play for Wealdstone on the right, does get a little bit lost. He does like to run up and is a pretty good attacking right back, but then we realised we got no one back to defend. So that's usually a good opportunity. But I mean, we've lost a league game out of it, so we haven't really seen much more other than that. But you got to play for the full 90 because we go for it all. We if it's still 0-0 with 93 minutes gone, we could still win that thing because that seems to be how we score nowadays.
Yeah, same as us as well, actually.
Oh god, so it'll be 0-0, then it'll end 4-4.
Yeah, it'll be. We were 1-0 up against Doncaster in 90th minute, and then we decided that, do you know what, this is too easy, and we let them score twice. And then another time we'll score twice in the last minute or two. So yeah, never leave our games early.
Yeah, same. So it'll still be rammed.
It's going to be 0-0. Gents, thank you very much for your time. I will tag you into it on Twitter so everyone can see your handle and look for your sliding water tackle that you mentioned earlier on. That's amazing.
It is so beautiful.
It's going to be the kind of thing we're going to really love. Thank you all for listening. There is another interview just coming up now, because if anyone can't make the Grimsby match, there is Sutton ladies playing at home on Sunday, 2:00 kickoff. It's against Fulham, and it's first match of the season. It's free entry, so please come along. There is an interview coming up with Fred just now, where I struggled to work out whether it's a free entry or not. And amazingly, they did all the social medias as I was talking to Fred, so I sound very confused, not sure, but it is free entry. And I'm delighted to say that joining me now, after much toing and froing and chasing around and almost stalkering, but not quite there yet, is the Sutton United women's team first team coach. It's Fred. Hello, Fred. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. So you kind of dropped in it last minute and had to do quite a bit of extra things on Sunday, and we couldn't quite get the time on Sunday, but it's all a bit calmer now. It's Monday. Calmer-ish. You got training tomorrow night as well, is it? Or
we have, yeah.
Lovely. So, in general, just have you been with Sutton long, or did you come along with Will? Or
so I've joined this season as first team coach. Will obviously joined towards the back end of last season. I've known Will for some time. We used to work together. So, yeah, I think we've been trying to get together for a good couple of years. Never really worked out, and yeah, this was the opportunity to try it.
Excellent. So again, I make no mistake that my knowledge of football is limited, and my knowledge of ladies football is even more limited. So I was trying to work out where we sit in the sort of grand scheme of things. I said it's almost like Ryman level, but Dave Fairbrother corrected me and said no, it's more like National League level. So how many promotions do we have to do till we start playing the Chelseas on a regular basis?
So the girls play in Tier 5 at the moment. So they're playing like the London South East Regional Prem.
Yeah,
it is a regional league, but it's Tier 5, which again leads into Tier 4, which becomes a bit more of a branded league at the national level.
right.
The travelling becomes a little bit more depending on, again, the region. Like it's National League South, and then you move up into the Prem Division, which is Tier 3, and then you join into the Championship, and then you move into the WSL in Tier 1. So some way to go still, but
we'll get it. And obviously, this is the highest level we've ever played at. How much is it is it a closed group within football? How much have you known about Sutton and their kind of rise over the last few years?
Well, they've definitely been on the radar. They've had tremendous amount of success in terms of climbing up the leagues, and where women's football is quite a small, I suppose, community of teams. Maybe not like the men's side where there's like hundreds of leagues. It's easier to kind of keep an eye on who's doing what and who's doing well, and yeah, Sutton have been doing well over the last few years, so that's obviously been out there on the radar.
Yeah, so I've watched a few games over the years. I've watched slightly more last year because I've watched now 5, but she's very interested in it. And I entirely blame Jazz because she waved at Rosie and Lassie at the hook, and now I'm there all the time. But I just feel that this season could be a bit of a tricky one. Do we get that feeling? Because the step seems to be quite a jump between the two.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, the leagues are getting competitive every single year in women's football, and that's obviously filtering down, which is really, really good. You want that. You don't want to be playing like easy teams every single week. So in terms of Tier 5, Tier 5 has improved a lot this year. There are a lot of teams that have come into the league from the league above that are still strong. And again, Sutton are a strong team that have come up from the league below. And funnily enough, their league below has got stronger and more competitive this season as well. So every single season is a challenge, regardless of what league you're playing in, because of the improvements that are being made in women's football and the filtering down, I suppose I should say. So yeah, it'll be a tricky season, but it'll be good because there'll be more competitive games, and it'll be another challenge for the girls to rise to, which I'm sure they will.
Absolutely. I mean, the headline names jump out in this league. Obviously, the divisions are slightly different, but the headline names, you see teams like Millwall and Fulham, and you're like, whoa, hang on a minute. These are full professional clubs. Obviously, they're playing at the same level as us, but your mind is tuned. How good are their teams? Are they just a bolt on, or because I know in women's football there's been a lot of just we have to have a women's team, so therefore we'll just do it. Are they good women's sides, or are they just box standard? We're easily going to win.
No, they're good sides. I think the way women's football's gone, maybe over the last 2 years especially, there's been a lot more support from professional teams such as Fulham to kind of maybe help support like the women's programs. And Millwall were new to Tier 5 last year, and they were a strong side. They were very competitive and very well organised, both on the pitch and off the pitch. And things you hear from players about them are positive, and they're moving in the right direction. And the same with Fulham. I know the manager at Fulham, Steve J. So I've had plenty of communication with him about what he does there and how they go about things. And yeah, there is a lot more that those clubs are coming in with a real professional attitude and mindset to wanting to build on their success, but in the right kind of way, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, it's good to have them in the league as a maybe standard setter, both on the pitch and off the pitch, of how we can improve things and do things better. So yeah.
I suppose it's also the name sort of jumps out at us as supporters, and it's like, whoa, that's a headline to grab. I also noticed that we're one of the few teams. I know the friendlies have been different, but we're one of the few teams that essentially will be sharing the main pitch. Is that how important is that from your point of view as a coach? Is make any difference, or does it really make you proud that we're doing that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great thing. Obviously, you've been at the pitch, so it's a really, really nice ground. Like the grass, being able to play on a really nice grass pitch is quite rare these days. Maybe at the level that we're at, but facilities overall, I think, especially at the tier 5 level where it's getting so competitive now, having good facilities really, really helps. Not just for recruiting players, but for developing current players. And yeah, I think just being able to share the ground is really unique for us. It's a lovely grass pitch, and I'm trying to think if there's many teams. There are a few teams that the Dartford obviously can sometimes play at the stadium on their grass pitch as well as the AstroTurf sometimes. And Fulham last season we were fortunate enough to play on their grass pitch at the training ground, which I was affiliated with another team. So yeah, it is really, really important, and it's something that we're very grateful for to be able to play on.
It's not grateful, it's proud. I'm proud that our club does it. Because that's one of the things, obviously, do you follow the men's side or not so much? You don't have to, don't worry.
So, without upsetting too many of the followers, obviously being new to Sutton this year, I've started to... we've been down to a couple of games to watch a couple of the men's games in pre-season, try and show, same support they show us. So it's something that hopefully I'll get into more this year. In terms of local teams, I support my local team a little bit more this year. So yeah, obviously naturally.
Yeah, no Sutton fan is going to worry if someone supports their local team. Don't worry. What I was going to say is when the year we got promoted and the pitch had to come up, one of the things that really, obviously we're worried about the pitch. One of the things that made me quite proud as being a Suttons fan, it's boring, I know, for everyone listening, is the fact that our concern wasn't that the pitch where were the first team going to play. It was, hang on a minute, we've got a women's section, we've got community teams, we've got the academy, we've got the kids. Where are they going to play? And it took a little while for everyone to get the message that we weren't worried about the first team. We were worried about all the others. And again, that was quite a proud moment that we were just really like, no, we're worried about the whole club because it is a community club. I know I joke around about Jazz waving at Rosie, but it's such a little hook. It's so good when I'm there. It's so different. You can wander around the whole pitch. The girls do come over. The ladies, women, guys. They do come over and interact with the kids and talk to the kids. And obviously, the kids are looking up at them, going, "Oh my God, you're my hero," which I think is really, really important. And do you get that sense of the kids interrupting them from your point of view, or are you quite, no, we'll leave that happen?
No, I think the girls are really good. I think I came to one of the games last season. It was one of the things that stood out for me. A couple of the players, I think, work with a couple of the teams on the youth side, and having them there as fans, being able to actually watch the games, which is quite difficult on a Sunday because I'm aware that a lot of youth teams play on a Sunday, but having those players that play for Sutton at the younger age groups come to games and watch that, the girls play is fantastic from a role model point of view. And the girls really take well to it. That they're really good with them, and I think it's just important. It's a bit like on the men's side, isn't it? When you're a fan and you go and watch the games, and you've got the young kids, looking and wanting to be like the centre back or the striker. Yeah. So for that to resonate on the girls' side, and we have that more as well here, is something that really stood out for me when I came to watch a game here, and something that's really nice to have.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good. And so pre-season, it's been a bit unfortunate this year. There was quite a lot of matches planned and scheduled, and then we've had 2 sort of heat waves, and quite a lot got called off last minute. There's been, I'll talk a bit more about this, but there's been a few complaints about the communication. Not your fault, but I was delighted actually because of how the complaint was made and what it meant. Yeah. But how difficult has it been with the pre-season, with a plan that you had in place, and then suddenly games being called off last minute, finding last minute opponents? I know at the weekend you were rushing around Northolt for a game that was supposed to be at home. But how difficult has the planning been on that?
Oh yeah, it can be really difficult. But I think with, again, like the women's teams that we have in and around our level, a lot of teams are in the same boat. Like there'll still be some squads even at this time of year where their squads aren't set. So it's natural that friendlies get cancelled, and it's hard. Like with us, we've been pretty lucky with the players that we had from last season, all wanting to stay on and adding players to the team. So we were pretty much set with friendlies. We were always going to have a squad regardless of who we played. So not other teams aren't as fortunate. Most of the time that they can't play is because they can't field a team, and that can be quite difficult because they're still in the recruitment phase and still trying to attract players to their programs. So it has been difficult, but we've adapted like every other team. And again, we were really lucky on Sunday to find a game against Actonians away, which, thank you to them for sorting that one out for us. So, and thank you to the girls, because obviously changing from playing at home to going all the way to Northolt last minute, thanks for their commitment, really.
Yeah, no. And yours as well, because one of the reasons why we struggled is because you were taxi driving and dropping people off. So thank you as well. So that's another thing that people don't necessarily twig, because yes, we're playing for Sutton, professional team, but it is at a level that's not quite there. So people perhaps don't realise the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes. They really do, but I don't think it's there in the forefront of your mind when you say, "Oh, you're the coach." Changing tactics slightly, the Euros.
Yeah.
And again, I don't mean this in any way, but how interested are you in watching England? I know a lot of people that watch Sutton, the men's team, aren't interested in the internationals. But how interested were you in the Euros and how it was all taken?
As an international, with internationals of England down the years, I've been notoriously really, really bad. I think the last time I watched a proper World Cup was maybe 2002 was the last internationals I watched. I tend to do a lot more of the analysis side of things, so looking at teams and breaking things down or getting ideas. But I watched the finals against Germany, which I thought was a really high quality game, and I didn't watch all the England games or the women's when they were on, but caught the finals, and that was a great performance. But generally internationals as far as they go, I prefer watching the club boys.
Well, I over the years been let down by England so many times, so you kind of like, it's not going to happen. And had Germany in the final, and I was like, it's not going to happen. We're going to lose on penalties. What's the point? But even Littleham, who, when we were watching early games in the tournament, we're like, why aren't they playing in yellow? It's like, it's not our girls, no. But then my absolute favourite person in the whole wide world, Chloe Kelly, for that last 10 minutes, keeping the ball in that corner, I was like, I was bouncing up and down. I was delighted. But how do you feel the impact's going to be now with women in sport and in football in particular? Is going to have that knock-on effect of encouraging more girls to play and, importantly, stay playing? Because I know there's a massive drop-off. I was talking to Faye, and she sort of says there's a big drop-off at sort of 15, 16. How important is it going to be, do you reckon?
I mean, the way they've marketed it, and same with the World Cup previous, but the way they've advertised everything and try to get behind the national team has been superb. So naturally, I think it will have a knock-on effect to younger players coming through that want to get involved in football and now have new role models. Those England internationals are going to be more in the media spotlight, which is, again, fantastic for like a young fan to be able to see and get kind of more time at seeing those players. I think, like you mentioned there, I think it's about, once you get the players involved in the game, is how do you keep them in the game? It can be difficult because there's so many things that are going on in people's lives these days. Not just like the cost of living, but the difficulties that people go through, work life balance is finding a way of keeping those players involved in the game, not just up till 16, but onwards as an adult as well, which can be sometimes a bigger challenge rather than getting players in. But I think generally it will have a good knock-on effect. They've advertised, they've done it really well, they've marketed it really well. So,
well, that was the kind of thread I was alluding to on the forum, because it was congratulating the women on the Euros win, and then it descended into a bit of an argument and a moan. And when I told my wife, she kind of rolled her eyes. I went, "Oh no, you don't know the reason. It was, why aren't we doing more to promote our women's team?" And people were moaning that we weren't pushing it. And I was like, "Well, this is a complete change from what I was expecting." So I think it's fantastic, and there's going to be a few extra people tagging along, especially as the fixtures have been really kind. I don't know whether it's deliberate. I presume it is. Where the men's team are away, the ladies' team are at home, and so on. So for those who don't go to the away games like me, it's nice to get a little football fix down at Gander Green Lane on a Sunday. And obviously I'll have the little one shouting and screaming and flipping her water bottle until someone comes over and she'll pretend she watched the whole game. But it's Fulham this Sunday.
Yep.
It's 2:00 kickoff.
Yeah.
And we're obviously in the stadium, and it's been it's a free admission. So, well, that's what Dave Fairbrother said. So if that's wrong, we'll talk to Dave about it. But it's a great chance to come and sort of cheer them on, and hopefully get a good start to the season, get 3 points on the board, and carry on the Gander Green Lane Fortress. Any thoughts from you ahead of the game, or is it still just a big? We don't know we don't know what teams are going to be facing or anything like that so far this season.
I think from experience, like the Fulham squad would have changed slightly from last season. That'd be normal. Steve down at Fulham's a good coach, so he'll set his team up in a certain way to play, and hopefully we'll have an idea roughly on how they'll play that we can try and use to create like a game plan out of that. But yeah, it'll be a good game for the girls. It would be a good first test for them, and I'm sure they will rise to the occasion for it.
And the other big change for us is substitutes, because up until last season we had roll on, roll off.
Yeah.
But this year it's the straight.
Well, unless they've changed the rule since last year. Last year, when in the same league, it was still roll on, roll off.
Oh, was it? I was told it changed.
Unless it might change, the rules might change. I have to have a look at the rules again, but. As far as I'm aware, at this level, still it's roll on, roll off. When you go up to tier 4, that's definitely 3 subs only.
Definitely. Right.
So yeah, that will obviously have a big impact. I quite like the roll on, roll off. I think if we're talking about women staying in the game, still, it's a competitive level where players want to get involved and want to be involved, and you've got to manage the game with certain tactics. I think having the ability to be able to give players minutes. Keep them interested and keep them active is important.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It threw me at first, because the first time I saw it, I think someone was on a hat trick, and next thing they come off, and I'm like, "What's this going on? What's this?" And then they came back on. Oh, okay, makes sense. But yeah, I think it was great for the. I mean, I wonder if Faye knows it's roll on, roll off, because she could come on again for a few minutes and have a goal or two.
I've not actually met her yet. I've heard about her, so I'll have to introduce myself to her.
Yeah. She's enjoying her retirement at the moment. She said she's lying. But thank you so much for your time. And I will sort of wave from my corner on Sunday. I won't move because I have to stand there, because that's where we're going to score goals. But I'll wave from my corner and look forward to meeting you in person soon.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's it for another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. Thanks very much for listening. Find me on all social medias at Sutton Podcast. Every like, share and retweet is really, really appreciated. Thank you to everyone doing that so far. Thanks to all my guests, to Mark, to Alex and the DN35 podcast, and of course to Alex, the first team coach of the ladies team. If any of you are around on Sunday, it'd be great to see a bigger crowd at the women's match, which kicks off at 2:00 with the bar open at 1:30. It's at Gander Green Lane, so you all know where it is. And hopefully we'll see a lot more of you there. Come and say hi, you know where I stand on the curver. Thanks everyone for listening, and take care. See you soon. Bye-bye. United!